Those who don't usually watch the vlogs may not be aware that my battery's running out. Hello, you fabulous examples of gorgeousness. Welcome to the September 2022 episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name's Leslie and this is a podcast about knitting, crochet, spinning, yarn and fibre stuff, recorded on the south coast of the UK. Welcome, whether you're here for the first time or you've been here before and you're frankly foolish enough to come back, thank you. You're very welcome. How are we? I hope everyone's okay. Yep, season's definitely changed in this part of the world, so I'm wondering if you're feeling a change as well, or if you're just waiting for the cold/hot weather to come, depending on where you are. What can I say? It's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, despite the fact that I have lots, because I rarely have enough of the same yarn to make a garment. So I do a lot of striping, colour blocking, bit of fading, you name it, I'll put yarns together, and I have no shame. With that in mind, there is a make-along running, and this is the Clearly Not Quite Enough Yarn make-along. If I do it again, I will think of a better name. So the idea is that you make a garment with sleeves of some description. They can be short sleeves, but a sleeved garment, and that you use more than one yarn, and that the demarcation between the yarns is clear. So if you're holding two yarns together all the way through, but it looks the same all the way through, I'm afraid that's not eligible for this particular make-along. It can be the same dyer or the same manufacturer but different bases, or it can be just, you know, generally whatever you've got in your stash, a ball of this, a ball of that, goes together nicely. The entry is via Ravelry. If you're unable to use Ravelry, please do drop me an email on notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com. If you'd like me to post any pictures on the Ravelry thread of a finished object or something of that nature, please do let me know that that's okay and send me the photograph. And what I'm doing with those entries is I'm putting them into the thread. If I have people's permission to put the photograph up, that's what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm just doing a note for myself, Les has entry, and then the initials of the person, so that I have a cross-check system. The prizes are drawn quarterly, or rather the winning entries are drawn quarterly for the prizes. So I'm just doing random number generator on the thread. The first one that I see that has a photograph will have a physical prize, so that might be yarn or a bag or something that I can actually send in the post to you. And if it's a comment or an observation or a reaction to another post, then the prize will be a pattern up to a value of, I think, $12. I should know this. $12, I think. Negotiable, yeah. So yes, if you are willing and able, lovely to have you join in. I'm always so delighted to run make-alongs because I love seeing what people make. It's a really interesting way to come across patterns that I wouldn't otherwise have seen. My queue always gets a lot longer, but in a very good way. So yes, please do join in if you'd like to. That's the make-along. That's the introduction. I record vlog style, sort of bits and pieces throughout the month and then smoosh them all together. Not always in order, as the very observant of you may see this month, but I try to put them into either a chronological order when I put the podcast together, or something that makes sense. That's a very loose phrase around here. So is there anything else I need to tell you right at this moment? No, I don't think there is. So I am currently working on two sort of major projects. I've got a ranunculus sweater on the go. I made a love note last month And this month I'm making a ranunculus as a bit of a compare and contrast. As I'm recording this, I've got the body done and I'm on one of the sleeves, so hopefully not too long. And I'm also making a shawl, which is a sample for Jude of Stranded Dye Work, so I'm hoping to have that finished so that I can send that to him and he can use that. I know he's exhibiting at Glasgow School of Yarn next month, so I'd like to get that to him so that he can use that there if he'd like to. Those are the two major projects. I will show you progress, or hopefully the finished items, later this month. Cheers. Hello lovelies. People who've been viewing this podcast for a while will know that every month I explain why it's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast and how I've never quite got enough, but I've actually got too much and I'm trying to get it down to 2 cupboards worth. And then at some point during the podcast I normally go on to explain how I've acquired more yarn. I've really excelled myself this month. To explain, I in my day job conduct funerals. This makes it sound like I have a sideline of house clearances. I don't. Ordinarily, I know that people are, you know, they're clearing people's houses and that sort of thing, and there's stuff to sort out. Well, this particular funeral that I was doing was for the aunt of a friend of mine. So it's a lady I used to work with, and her aunt had died. And she said to me that, you know, as we were talking about the aunt's life for the eulogy, one of the things she liked was machine knitting. Yeah. Well, then I had a message from my friend saying, do you do machine knitting? I said, yeah, a little bit. She said, would you be interested in some yarn? Well, I'll take a look. Because the aunt, as well as being a machine knitter, was quite a collector of all things. So I went round to the house and, my goodness, there must have been well over 100 cones of yarn in this cupboard and in various bags, if not more. And I was like, wow. Now, my friend is also a knitter. 2 things at play. Firstly, she thought that machine knitting yarn had been treated with oils, which traditionally it always was, so she didn't realise that could be used for hand knitting. And also, she's quite specific about the fibres that she likes to use, but she said, you know, have a look, help yourself. So I was going through and I was sort of sorting out, saying, you could use this, look, this has got wool and silk in it, you know. So whether she's taken any or not, I don't know, because I think the sorting of the house was quite a difficult process. Physically there was a lot to clear, emotionally a lot to clear. And also her other half was standing there saying, oh, where are you going to put it? Where are you going to put it? Which is not something that any knitter needs to hear, is it? Let's be honest. But, so I came away with actually quite a bit of yarn, although as a proportion of the whole, very small. I took some to a member of our knitting group as well. I talked to that person as well. She works in hospitals. And we were saying about hospitals that offer occupational therapy, or not just hospitals, but the hospice. I know they sometimes have kind of knitting exercises, you know, projects for people. Same with residential homes, for example. So I have let other members of the family of the lady who's died know about this, so that they can try and find homes elsewhere. But I'll show you what I've taken away. Now, there will be a lot of me diving. It's all on the floor at the moment, so there will be a lot of me as I go to pick it up. And there also will be some crinkling, because a lot of these are in plastic bags. So I hope you can forgive me those things. So I'm just going to go for the nearest first. In choosing what to take away with me, I was trying to think as practically as possible. So I was thinking about what am I going to make, and predominantly, you know, I do sort of baby things and sweaters for me. These are the things I mostly make. So I sort of selected accordingly. So here is some white double knitting. It is 100% acrylic. There's 500 grams of it there. And that's not a bad feel actually. As we know, acrylics can be, some can be really soft and some can be quite hard. That's quite a nice one. Also plain white, got a 4-ply acrylic. Similar weight, I think, 500 grams. And yeah, 100% acrylic. The make on this one is Bramwell. Some of these makes I only ever see in cones. Whether these are manufacturers who may or may not still be going, whether they only do cones for machine knitting, I don't know. Here, we've got here some very fine navy blue, and I have a label. 4Cell, there's another name that I hadn't come across, and this is 20% wool. So it's 20% wool / acrylic, so I'm assuming 20% wool, 80% acrylic. And I've roughly estimated that this is about 5,000 metres. And when we look at how much yarn I've acquired, I'm not going to be up this year on what I've used versus what I've acquired, thanks to himself's generosity, but also this. If I measured in weight it might be different, but because I measure in meterage, I have a lot of meters here. So here's quite a pretty colour, and this is, does it have a label? This is Mosaic, 20% mohair, 80% acrylic. Now some of these are very fine, but I will either ply them on themselves to make a thicker yarn or hold them together to have a mild yarn. So I have options. Sorry, I said they'd be crinkling. I have a very sensible grey. So this is Bramwell 4-ply 100% acrylic, and this would be a good base to have with other colours, or held with something else, or machine knitted. Make more panels, make another panel sweater, that sort of thing. I've definitely gone for a colour palette. Because there were all sorts of colours, as you can imagine. This is a lovely sort of heathered 4-ply weight, I think. There is slight variation which isn't coming up on camera, but it's one of the plies goes from kind of yellow end to a sort of darker purple end, so there is a little bit of variation in that to give a sort of heathered look. We've got a couple of cones of this, maybe not. This is called Chamal by 4Cell, 80% acrylic, 20% wool. And does it say a meterage? No. I think this is somewhere between a 3 and 4 ply. I know it's only 2 plies of yarn, looking at it, but I think in terms of weight, in UK terminology, it's kind of between a 3 and 4 ply. So again, I've had to estimate some of the yardages or meterages, because all I've got is the weight and not necessarily more information than that. There was one that caught my eye as soon as this wardrobe, it was a double wardrobe shelved out, my goodness. As soon as it was opened, this caught my eye, which will surprise no one. And there are 2 of these. I think it's possible that I don't have quite enough yarn for a sweater, but we shall see. This is Dennis Brunton Designer Yarns Magicolour, and some of these brands I'd never heard of, but I found them on Ravelry, so I was able to get a bit more information about them. If you're on Ravelry, by all means go and have a look at my stash if there's anything that you'd like to know anything about. This good old King Cole anti-tickle superwash super spun, and it's 100% wool, I think. Yep, pure new wool. Fabulous colour. Now some of these have been in a cupboard. They could do with a bit of a wash. That's fine. I'm trying to keep them in the bags where I have them in case they have any little fluttery friends. We've also got some pure new wool here, not a complete cone on this one. I weighed this at 363 grams, so I think it's just over 300 grams of, and originally 500, but again 4-ply pure new wool. So I really hope they find homes for the rest of it, or for a lot of it. It's the sort of situation where you think, they had a skip outside to put a lot of stuff from the house, and you're thinking, if it's clogging up my room or the skip, I'll clog up my room rather than see this thrown. But I know they're very reluctant to throw things out that has any possible use. They're trying to find homes for as much as possible. There were a couple of sewing machines which they're going to look to try and find homes for. So yes, there were a couple of sewing machines, but also knitting machines, which in their day would have been top of the range, but it's some time since this lady has been actively machine knitting. She used to belong to a local group, and I think they were trying to get hold of the local group or members of them to see if any of the members would like the yarn, because they would certainly find use for them. So I am optimistic that they will find homes. So we've got another purple here, a sort of deeper purple, and this is also Dennis Brunton Designer Yarns Duet, because there are 2 plies, I think. So it feels about a 4-ply weight, so fingering weight, and I weighed this 263 grams, so got a couple of 100 grams at least on there. This is very pretty. This doesn't have a label at all, but oh, it's not really showing. It's a slightly uneven texture, kind of as if you've got one thread and another one spun around it of slightly different fibres. Pinks, peaches, again going from a slightly sort of yellow tinge to a slightly bluey one, so very pretty. I mean, some of this looks a bit tired and worn. There will be some wastage, I'm sure, but better than putting it in a skip. Lovely peach colour, which is blowing out violently. That's pretty close to it, I think. So this is a cotton acrylic mix. This is Yeoman Panama, 50% of each fibre, 4-ply weight. Showing a little darker, but not a lot. So oh, it's called the Cyclamen colourway. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I will find something for that. Last 2. We've got a white one here with little sort of patches of blue in it, and this is Fashion Rainbow 4-ply, 88% acrylic, 12% polyester, made in England by Cranbrook for Inti Yarn, Arthur Street, Colchester. No idea if any of these companies are still going, but that's quite a pretty yarn with a sort of subtle colour change in it. And the last one is called Velveteen, and it certainly feels very soft. There will be some wastage on this. We've got some sort of dirty yarn around the edge, which I'm guessing won't be saved. It's 70% acrylic, 30% cotton, 2 plies but very loosely plied. yeah, so because I measure by meterage, I worked it out, and it's roughly 22 miles of yarn. And the lady from our knitting group said, well, how long will that take you to knit through? And I looked at last year's usage, and I think I was something like 24 miles. So it's just under a year's worth here, assuming I did nothing else. The reality is a lot of these yarns I'm probably going to crochet with. I'm going to put them together to make other things. Given the weights of them, I may well be using the knitting machine and making pieced items that I then sew together, or a bit like the panel jacket that I made recently. I have options, and probably if I rang them and said, oh, can I have a few more cones, I'm sure they'd say yes. So I could have more options, but that's why I'm not doing that. So yes, here I am again, working down my stash. There is no reason to work down a stash. You know, there is a joy in having lovely colours around you, in the same way that there's a joy in crafting. The issue is storage, and that's something I've got to work on somehow. But we'll get there. That's me not reducing my total of yarn this month / year. Hello lovelies. I'm wearing my love note that I finished last month. I like it, but the sleeves are still big. At some point I think I will have to unpick them and get rid of a lot of this excess fabric, so it's more like that than that. Also, because it's quite a loose sweater, which I do like, but with this sort of circular yoke, it feels a bit like a clown sweater. I feel like Pierrot. Anyway, so yeah, I do like it, and I will use it. I mean, certainly, but not sure. Certainly, I mean, I'll probably use the pattern again, but I think I'll modify it quite a bit. But I digress. That's not what I'm recording this section for. I have been the very lucky recipient of 2 lots of Happy Mail this month. Hopefully you can hear the first bit. Those who see the vlog will know that I am part of a local drumming troupe where we dress up in black and red and wear face paint and make a noise. And from the USA I received a drummer gnome whose hat is like mine. I'll show you a picture of me in my costume and the gnome, and it'll be a spot the difference competition. Isn't this fabulous? So I'm looking at ways to attach it to my drum. I need to have it removable because we're an all-weather drum troupe. We drum a lot during bonfire processions, which are this time of year toward, you know, over the next month or so. They can get quite soggy, and I don't mind my drum getting wet, I don't mind me getting wet, but I don't want this to get wet. So I'm looking at ways of attaching it. Got a couple of ideas already, so we'll see how we go on that. But isn't that just the most fabulous thing? So many details on it. So the hat looks like mine. We've got matchsticks for drumsticks. It rattles, it rustles. Little beads on the shoes, sparkly around the lower part. Got these beautiful bits of fabric, got the sequins here. It's just fabulous, and the person who very kindly made it for me, thank you again. I really do love it. It's just wonderful, so thank you. So yes, what a lucky girl I am. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Then I received a parcel from Australia, completely out of the blue, and a mixed bag of goodies, which I will show you. Just so incredibly kind. So thank you again to this person as well, who again I have thanked already. Got a bag there from Della Q. Shush, I'm counting. A phrase familiar to us all, I'm sure. There was a selection of confectionery, which, well, what can I say? So we have cherry ripe, cherry and coconut. Oh, goodness. And then fruit chocks. So we've got peach and apricot, I think. Certainly apricot, possibly peach as well. Oh, some stone fruit. Come on, it does say. Yes, apricot and peach. And fruit chocks, mango. So, wow. Marvellous, marvellous. And it gets very exciting because I have a bundle of two lots of delights, and one of these is 2 lots of delights as well. This fabulous yarn, I mean, look at these colours, are from Moseley Park. And this is the Velma, I think it's the Velma colourway in the Osnun base, which is 75% superwash Australian merino, 25% nylon, 375 metres per 100 grams. It feels lovely and soft and is just, I mean, hello, look at these, aren't they just the most gorgeous? And talking of gorgeous, this very kind person also sent me fibre. Look at this loveliness. So this is from Kathy's Fibres. And this is Wiranada Polworth Silk 7030 in the stained glass colourway. Just absolutely beautiful. And I'm wondering with this about spinning it all as a single from the braid and then chain plying it to try and preserve blocks of colour rather than have the barber pole effect. So that's something that I will seriously think about with this, because these colours are so lovely that you want to be able to see each of them in their glory. So yes, what can I say? I am extremely fortunate and extremely grateful. So thank you again to my lovely friend in America who made the drummer, and my lovely friend in Australia who sent these wonderful things. Thank you. Hello lovelies. I'm only wearing my ranunculus. It's done, it's finished. I finished it this morning. I'm just going to move you a second, there we go. I finished it this morning in the crematorium car park early for my ceremony, weaving in the ends there. If you think knitting in car parks get you strange looks, try weaving in the ends. Even knitters will give you strange looks when you're doing that. I'll be honest, I took my glasses off and just carried on. So this is the ranunculus sweater by Midori Hirose, under the name Cafe Midori, sorry. And it's a top-down sweater with a circular yoke at the top with lace detail, then goes into raglan shaping, and then it's just straight down to the hem, to the sleeves. Yeah. So what modifications have I made? Well, firstly, I've added colour. I probably could have done this all in one yarn with the yarn that I had, but I just can't stop myself. I was inspired, believe it or not, by a description in the pattern which talks about the lace and the texture patterns in the design, about them being like rows or strings of necklaces. And I thought, well, actually I'd quite like to highlight that. And once I start, I can't stop. So I had a ball of Noro Silk Garden Light, and I've used all but sort of 8 grams of it. No, 4 grams of it, I think. So I started off, there's a texture pattern between 2 bits of lace in the ranunculus, and I did that in the contrast. And then I just did reverse, I'd sort of garter ridges, so I'd do a plain row and then a purl row to give you a garter ridge in the other colour. So did it to here, then fairly plain, little bit at the base of the sweater and at the end of the sleeve. So that's probably the main modification in terms of colour. I made the sweater to fit high hip on me, which is what I wanted for this particular item. The pattern does give a lot of methods for variations, so sleeves, neck width, all of those things. Sleeves, I did learn from my love note, as I said I might, and I put my decreases in more regularly when working the sleeves on this one, so they're much snugger, which is how I like to wear them. I could have gone a bit longer. I didn't realise I was going quite sort of bracelet length, but given that I normally push my sleeves up my arm, that's fine. I don't envisage that being an inconvenience to me. Yeah, those are my main mods. So what are the yarns? Well, we have several. This looks a lot bluer on camera than it does just looking at it. It is different to the other green, but it is a much greener rather than bluer green. So this is Malabrigo Rios Forest Green or something like that, I think it's called. The contrast is, as I say, Noro Silk Garden, and then the green is a huge hank I had of double knitting weight wool that I bought at a yarn show, Alexandra Palace, many years ago. I've knitted since I was a wee child. I think I was about 4 when I learned to knit. But it's only really since I've been on Ravelry that I've learnt more about different fibres, and for a while I had ambitions to be a bit of a yarn snob. I've lost that because I know how pointless it is. But I remember at this particular Alexandra Palace it was like 100% wool. Well, I'll buy it then, because I thought wool's better than, you know, I was mostly using acrylic, which is of course nonsense, because it depends what you're using it for, what your finished object is for, what you want to work with, if you have allergies. But I was younger and foolish. Now I'm just older and foolish. But yeah, so that's why it's an unbranded hank of yarn. I think it had something like, I did write it down, it had something like 900 metres on the hank. So beyond the fact that it's a DK weight, 100% wool, that's all I know. So yes, that's the yarn. I mean, it's not a scratchy yarn, it feels quite nice. I'm glad I've got the Rios next to neck, because that is lovely and soft, and I'm a bit of a princess, as we know. But yes, it's not itchy at all, it's not rough. So although I don't know anything about it, I kind of got lucky through chance rather than design. Thoughts on the pattern? It's very clear. I mean, it's 15 pages. I was talking with lovely Louise from my knit group this week, and I was saying that I wonder now, patterns in the last few years seem to have more and more pages, and I wonder if designers are assuming that people are using devices to look at them and software, I think Knit Companion's one of them, to look at their patterns, rather than expecting people to print them off. I could be theorising a load of old nonsense, but the thought occurred to me. Yes, so it's a lot of pages. It has lots of photographs. It has photographs of finished items in different types of yarn, on different sizes of bodies. So, you know, that's quite useful in that respect. It also has some illustrations of some of the techniques, So it is a very, very comprehensive pattern. Lots of help and suitable for relatively inexperienced knitters. There is a lot of guidance. So I would say, even if you've never made a garment before, even if your knitting experience is not very deep, you would have no problem making one of these, because everything is very clearly explained. Just trust the pattern. I mean, on Ravelry alone, 15,000 people have made this, so you know that it's a well-tested pattern. And you can also know from that that if something's not working out, it's probably you. And although that's not a positive thing to say, at least you know where the problem lies. You're not sitting there thinking, I wonder if this is the pattern. You know, it's very well tested, very well proven. So if you're an inexperienced knitter, I would have a go with it. I know it was Susan from Wild Cottage. She's linked in the podcasts I watch below. Sorry, Susan. Yeah, it is Wild Cottage, isn't it? She was saying she'd cast on her ranunculus a few times because she'd had some things go not quite to her liking here. I know that I have done this top texture. I'm not going to say wrong. I'm going to say not strictly according to the pattern. And I know that because when I did it the second time, I thought, oh, I didn't do that before. And I know I don't care. A couple of reasons for this. Firstly, it's for me. And that's not to say I don't deserve nice things, but if I'm happy to live with it as it is, then I'm happy to live with it as it is. And the other thing is, it's in a dark colour, so the pattern isn't showing up in a huge amount of detail anyway. If it was a very light yarn that I'd been in and it was more obvious that there was a difference, I would have thought more about unpicking and going back and doing it again. Probably wouldn't have done it, but I'd have thought more about it. Yeah, so I know that, you know, some folks have found this bit a little, it's an unusual texture, and yeah, you know, the fact that I did it two different ways, I like to think shows my adaptability and flexibility. I like to think that. The pattern does include lots of options for modifications, as I said earlier, so you haven't got to have one that's long sleeve, short sleeved. It shows you different bits for shaping the cuff of your sleeve, different neck widths, lots of stuff there, so plenty of choice. Is there anything I don't like about it? I did the smaller of the two neck options and it's okay. It feels about 5 stitches too small. Now the wider one is quite a bit wider, so yes, it does feel a little small, not enough for it to be a problem. And I had sort of tried it on once I'd got further down the sweater just to make sure, because it looks small. I thought I'd need to make sure that's going to go over my head, and it does. It's absolutely fine. As you can see, it fits quite snugly, and given that I often feel the cold around the back of my neck and my shoulders, it's great that it's sitting nice and high on the back of the neck. But it just feels, like I say, about 5-10 stitches too small. Not enough to be a problem, and I do have a larger than average head. That's not me making a joke, that's just a statement of fact. So yes, that's fine. One thing I do really like about it, again, it's the neck, but it has some good short row shaping so that it does sit flat. And in the ranunculus / love note debate, I would have to say the ranunculus slightly edges it for me because of that. Now, I added some short rows to my love note, which anyone can do, but with this they're built into the pattern, so it does just sit that little bit better. I'm round shouldered, and so things very easily slip from my shoulders. This does feel very secure. It doesn't feel like the sort of sweater that I'm going to spend a lot of time sort of, you know, sort of pulling it straight. In fairness, I haven't had to do that much on the love note either when I've been wearing it, but that feels a kind of looser thing, whereas this does fit. It feels as if it fits very well on the shoulders and very snugly. Maybe because the neck is smaller, but I think the short row shaping really helps to give it a good fit and to have it sitting nicely on the back of the neck so that you don't have a rise on the back or it falling down. So yes, in that all important, do you prefer the Stones or the Beatles? Is it Blur or Oasis? I'm going to come down on the side of Team Ranunculus. Having said that, also because I prefer the texture on this than the Love Note lace, I talked about that last month. Having said that, I am pretty sure I would make either of them again, and will make either of them again, using the numbers as a base. So I would happily make a Love Note, but I probably wouldn't put the lace in. So as a basis, they're both quite good sweaters. If you want this shape, and I was talking about my Love Note the other day, saying it feels like a bit of a clown sweater, because it does feel a bit, it becomes sort of very loose very quickly. And this is a very similar shape, so potentially the same problem. Again, that's where I think the short rows help, in that it does feel a better fit around the very top, which everything's hanging from. So I think that's why I'm slightly Team Ranunculus. But there's, I mean, 15,000 people have made one, 10,000 people have made another, and that's just the ones that are on Ravelry. So they are both extremely popular, extremely well tested patterns, and I know people who've made multiples of them for good reason. They are very clear, they're very well written, very wearable, and very cosy. They're very adaptable. You know, you can make them in very fine weight yarns as long as you get gauge. You can make them in, I mean, this is DK. A lot of people make them in 4-ply and mohair held together, so you've got plenty of options with both patterns. So yeah, that I am slightly Team R, not Team LN, but because of that one feature, well, two if you include the lace, basically anything from the shoulder blade between the neck, I prefer the Ranunculus. The rest is pretty much the same, probably because I'm going to adapt it and make the sleeves smaller anyway. So yes, it's finished. It's not blocked. It probably won't be, because I put it on to take a couple of photographs and to, you know, see how I like the fit of it once I'd finished it, and I haven't taken it off yet. Yeah, not sure when I will. I will at some point. Obviously it'll need washing before long, but yeah. So finished sweater. Yay! Hello lovelies, how are we? It's Saturday morning. We're nearly there folks, we're nearly on the home straight. I say this specifically because everyone always asks about this one. This is the Ocean Shore by Drops Design, free pattern accessed on the Drops website or via Ravelry. Made out of some grey boucle I had on a cone and Noro to give the stripes. So that's this. Any other hand knits you see me in, the links will be in the notes below. So I have my other finished object, which I've just realised is a bit damp actually, so I'm leaving it on this hanger. I'm throwing things around as always. I had this blocking and thought it had dried, and most of it had, but a few bits are still damp, so I'm going to leave it on the hanger. This magnificence, and you can see just how big it is. This is the Coles River kerchief. So that's the Coles River kerchief by Tony Lipsey, who is TL Designs, TL Yarn Crafts, forgive me. Where's my bit of paper? If I find my notes, life will be a lot easier. Notes, you cry? I can't believe she has notes. So, yeah, so the Coles River kerchief by Tony Lipsey. As you can see, shawl, long triangular shawl. very large. I'll put a picture in here of the designer's photograph. That was a bad sentence. I'll put in here the designer's picture so you can see how it looks once it's worn. Now this I made as a sample for Stranded Dye Works. I had offered years ago to crochet a sample for Stranded, and a little while ago Jude, I reminded Jude over periods of time, and he took me up on the offer, which I'm delighted to have made. So the yarn is, the label's over there, but it's the merino yak yarn, so merino yak nylon in the caramel colourway. The original yarn on Tony Lips's design had 362 yards, so that's 330-ish metres per 100 grams. 2 skeins used, but obviously that's 660 metres. I had 800 metres because of the yardage on this particular yarn. So I got in contact with Jude and said, would you like me to knit you a swatch with the rest, or would you like me to make the shawl bigger? And he said, bigger please. So that's what we did. So how I have done that is to add another section. It's a very adaptable pattern. The structure is fairly simple. Mostly it's double crochet stitches, so that's single crochet US, with this cluster lace panel, striped rather, and then at the end you have a lot of this. There are normally 3 sections on the original design before you go into the lace end. I made it 4. That's how I added the extra. So it has made this very large, magnificent beast of a shawl. The yarn is gorgeous. It's very soft. It's not a squishy soft like some merino. It's almost like a soft toy type of softness. This has a softness to it, but it feels robust enough to use for a number of projects. It's not one of those yarns that you feel had to be a shawl because it wouldn't stand up to being a sweater. Lovely yarn to work with. What else can I tell you? Yep, that's basically it. So the pattern, very straightforward, very well exchanged. Oh, the irony that I mess up the words of very well explained. Yeah. And it was fun to work. You start at the narrow end, and the narrow end is very narrow, and it curls because it's double crochet / single crochet stitches, but the idea is that this narrow end is knotted and the rest is looped around the neck as many times as you like. So here it is. The colour, it's coming out a little brighter on camera. It's a slightly darker, I mean, caramel is a good name for it. It's very much a sort of caramel toffee sort of colour. It's looking slightly more orange on screen. It's browner, but has a lovely depth to it. And this yarn also has a few speckles, so you're working it and suddenly you see a little dark speckle or a red one. Very lightly done, but just adds a little bit of difference. And you can see it's sort of slightly tonal. I'm probably using the wrong words here, but yeah, so a lovely yarn, a sample piece. So once this is fully dry, rather than the dry I thought it was when I unpinned it a while ago, I will be sending that off to Jude for his use. So that's my other FO, my sample knit. So now it's time for you to see me drawers. By that, by that I mean I've drawn prizes. Right, I'm thinking as I talk and I can't do either very well today. So the make along Thank you to everyone who has been taking part. There's been some great conversations going on, people asking about patterns, colours, yarns. Great to see. So thank you so much for taking part. If you haven't won in this quarter, I will be doing a total make-along draw as well. So if your number wasn't picked out this quarter, it may be picked again at the end of the year. Maybe picked at the end of the year when I do the full thread and pull from that for an end of Mal prize. So the pattern prize goes to post number 157. I used random number generator, and this was between posts 118 and 395. So 157 is our winner, who is H&G, Heather from Melbourne. She was commenting on another person's project. Yeah, so Heather, congratulations. If you'd like to get in touch and let me know what pattern you would like, I will happily get that sent over to you. So thank you very much. And the yarn prize, now I haven't actually bought the yarn, and I would like to say it's because I'm planning a different type of giveaway. No, I just haven't got organised enough, sorry. But the winner is Lisa, who is someone who regularly goes to Barbara's Zoom meetings. So this is Lisa Kingston Cole, post number 347, who made a simple hug as a gift for her sister-in-law. So congratulations, Lisa. And rather than me choose for you, I will happily get you a skein of yarn. So if you would be kind enough to let me know what you'd like. So a skein of hand-dyed yarn up to around £25 sterling, or the euro equivalent. Actually, given the way sterling's dropped this week, yeah, talk to me, yeah. But yes, if you'd like to let me know what yarn you'd like, I will get that to you. So you can let me know what colour you want, base, have a think. If there's a yarn that you've been thinking, oh, I would like that, then this is an opportunity. So please do get in touch, and I will get that ordered and sent to you. So congratulations, Lisa, on the yarn prize. Congratulations, Heather, on the pattern prize. Please both get in touch, and your prizes will be on their way to you. So that's all the crafty content. I said at the end of last month, my sister was visiting, and we'd be going to a couple of local sites. And we had a nice weekend. There was some rain. We managed to kind of dodge the weather, which was good. She arrived on the Thursday, and we went to the local, or a local pub quiz. It's one that himself often goes to, but his teammates were away that week, so we frightened him a little by saying, we'll come too, and we won. And you can see on their chalkboard that it says prize money, and we did win a prize. I mean, there were only 3 teams in it, so we won, but you know. But the convention is that the prize money goes to a local charity. They have a lot of collection boxes on the bar for different charities, and the convention is that we donate. So I think we gave it to the RNLI, which is the lifeboats. So it was a fun evening. We were delighted to win. Considering the next week himself went with his usual teammates and came second to last. There were more teams, but even so, they came, I think, 8th out of 9 or something. So there is a certain amount of gloating going on between my sister and me over our success in the pub quiz. On the Friday, we went with a friend of my sister's and my mate Mand to a place called Mitchell Priory, which is, I think, a 13th century priory, probably about half an hour away from me, 40 minutes, something like that. Really lovely building, set in very pretty grounds. One of my mate Mandy's favourite places. So we had a good day there. We managed to kind of dodge the weather. We were outside when it was sunny and inside when it was raining, so we did quite well there. So interesting place to look around. And then on the Saturday, My sister and I went to Bateman's, which is the home of Rudyard Kipling. And again, probably about sort of half an hour, 40 minutes from me, in a different direction this time. So it was nice to go and see that, to go and see the house, and beautiful gardens. Although we're getting to the end of a lot of the flower display, still very lovely gardens. So that was good. As my sister came, her dog came with her. He is Digby. He and Heidi get on okay. There was a little bit of settling down when they first met, but they get on fine. And Digby is now quite elderly. He just wants to have a quiet life. He did take one of Madam's favourite places on the sofa. So at first she was just sniffing at his bed and not doing anything about it. But then she decided, if he's having my cushion, I'm having his bed. So there we go. They sort themselves out, don't they? So that was September, and there it was gone. October, I'm hopefully going to London to visit one of you lovelies. A lady is visiting the UK, and hopefully this time we'll avoid, because when I tried to meet with Susan before, we had record temperatures and rail strikes, and it just never quite worked out. But hopefully I have a fixed date with the lady that I'm meeting, so that should be good. And I think we're going to yarn shops. Oh dear, how sad, what a shame. And then later in the month, heading to Cornwall to visit family. Usually go every year to see my nephew and his other half and their children. Obviously with COVID we didn't go for a couple of years. The children have grown a lot in that time, so it would be nice to catch up with them. Yeah, that's October in the pipeline, I think. So I hope whatever you're doing, you're having fun. I hope the weather is kind to you. I hope that if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a comfortable temperature. Fires have gone out, because I know some places have had fires, and you have the right amount of rain. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope you have the right amount of rain, comfortable temperatures, and the fires don't start. Yes. Yes, we think we're in charge of this planet. We're really not, are we? But whatever you're doing, I hope you're happy, healthy. I know some of you lovelies that are going through some health situations, so I hope they all go smoothly. And I hope that you're all having fun. If you're crafting, I hope you're enjoying it. Whatever you're doing, enjoy, have fun, live well, and thank you again for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.